Hey, what's up, guys? So, in this video, I want to talk to you about why I believe technology has basically destroyed America. So, at my age, have had the unique opportunity, like others, to have witnessed and lived through one of the greatest changes in mankind, and that is the technological leap that we've seen in the last 20 years. So, me as a child, for example, it was a completely different world than that of my children now. There were no cell phones, there was no internet. And looking back, I really believe that life was a lot better back then. I really, really do. The technology is good for a lot of things. It's great that we have all this information available to us, and a wonderful thing when used for the right reasons. But for the most part, I think it's really a big negative. I mean, people having these cell phones on them all the time and being on these screens, just looking into a screen all day, versus actual communication and interaction with people. I can't imagine how anybody would prefer the communicating through the screens. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. People have changed also. I've noticed that people have changed. They're not the same. People are not as friendly, not as social as they once were. And it's a horrible thing. And with regard to young people, social media is like the worst thing ever. The worst thing ever invented is social media, because it creates this environment where young people feel so pressured to try to fit in, to try to be popular. And when you look at who is popular in this world, you come to realize that it's people that are not about anything, people that are not providing anything of benefit to anyone. It's dumb shit. It's girls on Instagram showing their asses and bodies and just with no class, no taste, no morality. And they call these people influencers. What are they influencing you to do, or your children to do? Become like them? Become shallow? Become about nothing? It's hard for me to understand why the people who really deserve the popularity and the focus on them are, nothing in this world. Nobody really cares about good people of character and substance who are trying to do something right. That's not cool. Nobody wants to hear that. They want the garbage. They want the gossip. They want the fighting, and they want the lewdness. The girls half naked, or the guys half naked. That's what people want. That's how people are now entertained, by looking at a screen. Looking at a screen and scrolling through it and doing nothing. That's how the majority of people spend their time now. That's a crazy thing to have thought back then in the 80s, for example, even early 90s, to have thought that the future would be this. It would have been nuts. I don't think many of us would have chosen it if we knew what the outcome would be. And not only, the people misusing the technology, but the government misusing the technology against us. We're being tracked everywhere. There are cameras everywhere, recording devices on us. Each one of us who has a cell phone, a smartphone, has a recording device and a video camera that can be turned on and accessed at any time by the government or by hackers. And they can turn it on even when the phone is off. And they can turn it on, your camera, for example, without having the light indicate that it's on. They can do this at any time. They know where you are. They know what we're doing. The phones listen to your conversations, and when you go back onto some other media platform, then cater the ads to the things that are of relevance to you, that you talk about. That's so scary to think. I didn't believe that up until a couple years ago when I tested it out for myself. Sometimes I just be speaking to someone randomly about anything, about buying a car, for example. And the next time I sit down in front of the computer and turn it on, there are ads for buying a car all over the place. And I've repeated that experiment multiple times, and it's always the case that they are listening and using that information for marketing purposes in this case. But the government uses it for a lot worse reasons. And it's a scary thing that we've really lost so much of our freedoms as a result of technology. We really have. And the way people act as a society has also changed. The way police interact with people has changed drastically. You know, local police in small towns are like militant now. You know, they show up for a domestic violence call with fucking machine guns. They're not anything like what used to be, where you could actually have a conversation with an officer and figure out what's happening. You know, these days, I think people would be more afraid to even ask a cop for help if they saw one, because you never know. God forbid you get the wrong one and this guy goes nuts and fucking kills somebody and gets away with it. You know, they start saying, stop resisting, and then he shoots you and kills you for nothing. So people have changed. It's not the same anymore. You know, and I can't see any other reason for this drastic of a change other than the technology. It's not a good thing, you know. And going back to misuse of it, you know, a lot of people do some bad stuff online. There are a lot of predators out there who are using this technology to target children, and they're successful at it because it's so easy for them to do, to misrepresent themselves as a child or as a teenager and just lure other young people into these traps. It's scary, and parents, for the most part, are unaware of what their kids are doing online, and they need to really change that. If you have children in your house, please be very aware of what they're doing, because you'd be surprised to find out some of the content that they're looking at. And that's another thing. You know, children during my time growing up, you were pretty much able to have a childhood and be insulated from things that you weren't supposed to be exposed to until later in life. And these days, that's not the case. These days, because of the technology, you know, these kids are growing up way faster, and it's not a good thing. I don't mean growing up as far as becoming more mature or wise. I mean, they're seeing things and hearing things that they shouldn't at these young ages, and they're living their lives according to these things. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. So if it were up to me and I had the choice to flip the switch, I would wipe out technology, the kind of technology I'm talking about, you know, completely. Internet, social media, wipe all that shit out. I would rather have none than have what we have today. So I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on this. Please leave comments and feedback if you have any, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.